بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع واندفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والدعوة الهدى والدلالة إلى خير واحد فقط بس بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله ابتغاء مرضات الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العليم. Inshallah, today we're going to continue where we left off from last week. And we're coming now to an age in which the Prophet ﷺ, in one narration 4, in one narration 6, in one narration 7, in one narration 5, several ages. But he and his mother, and remember that his father has passed away and he only has his mother, and they go to just outside Medina because she had relatives with her, and she took the young Prophet ﷺ, and they spent maybe the best part of several weeks in this place. And the Prophet ﷺ would play with the young children, and he actually learned how to swim in this area. There was like a well in this place full of water, and he ﷺ actually during this time picked up how to swim, as narrated in a hadith by Ibn Sa'd on the authority of Ibn Abbas and others. And the people of the Ahl Kitab, the Jews, would come and they would look at him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they would say to Ayman, or rather Ayman would hear them. She would overhear them saying, "This is the Prophet of this ummah. This is the Prophet of this ummah, and this place, Yathrib, which was soon to become known as Medina, is his place of hijrah, his place of migration." And Ayman, when she heard this, she took hold of it, and she kept it in her mind. And they, after spending several weeks, they leave and they head back to Mecca. And just outside of Mecca, Amina becomes sick. Amina becomes sick, and the hadith narrated by Abu Nu'aym that the Prophet ﷺ narrates that before this event, that a man of Ahl Kitab, of the Jewish faith, he would come forwards and backwards, he would come again, and he would look at him, and he would examine him with his eyes. And he said to him, "Ya ghulam, ma ismuka? Oh boy, what is your name?" And he said, "My name is Ahmed." And then he said, وَنَظَرَ إِلَى ظَهْرِ. In this narration it says Ahmed. And this man looks at him, examines him with his eyes, and looks at his back. And as he's looking at his back, the young Prophet hears the man saying, هَذَا النَّبِيُّ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ. This is the Prophet. Oh, he hears him. Because some people, when they talk, when they think out loud. Yeah? What's in their minds, they say it out loud. They're thinking it out loud. So we heard him say, this is the Prophet of this nation. And then the Prophet, after hearing this, went to his relatives and told them about this man, what he said. And they got frightened, his family, because obviously Amina and Ayman now, obviously there's a lot of signs now. So they leave. And Ayman narrates that something similar happened to her, that two men from the Jewish faith came to her, and they asked her, "Tell me about this young boy here." And she brought out the young Prophet ﷺ, and they looked at him, and when they saw him, they got so happy, and they kissed his head, and they were full of happiness when they saw him. And one of them said to the other, "This is the Prophet of this nation." and this is his place where he's going to make hijrah to, and in this land there's going to be a lot of killing, and a lot of people will be taken captive as prisoners of war, and a great event will happen here. And Ayman, she heard this. Again, this conversation between each other, which she overheard. And this is going to be very important for her in the future, because a lot of these things obviously will come, actually all of these things will come to be a reality. In the hadith read by Abu Nu'aym, that عن سماعة بنت أبي رهم عن أمها قالت, this woman said, she narrates this hadith, she witnessed the passing away of Amina, the Prophet's mother, and while she was in her lodgings, her place where she just outside of Mecca, the place where she stopped because she got sick, and the young Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, in this narration, approximately 5 years of age, and he was standing by her head as she's on her deathbed, and she looked at him, and she started singing, not singing, but she started reciting some lines of poetry, and in translation it goes, Baraka fika Allahu min al-ghulami, may Allah bless you, O young boy, you, the one whom the cloud shades when he walks, and you were saved by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. May my heart be taken ransom for your safety and your freedom. With 100 camels you were saved. Remember in the beginning? 100 camels? For 100 camels you were saved. And if what I have seen in my dreams is true, فَأَنْتَ مَبْعُوثًا إِلَى الْأَنَامِ, you are the one that has been sent to all of creation. From the one, مَنْ عِنْدَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ, from the one, the high, the august Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, تُبْعَثُ فِي الْحِلِّ وَفِي الْحَرَامِ, and you will come and you will clarify that which is halal and that which is haram, and you will come with a precise religion, the religion of Islam, دين أبيك البر إبراهيم, the religion of your father, the obedient one, Ibrahim. And you will come تبعث بالتخفيف والإسلام, and you will come with ease and with Islam. ألا تواليها مع الأقوام, and that you will not be in any need of people of creation to be your helper, to be your people to give you victory. Allah will give you victory. فَاللَّهِ أَنْهَاكَ عَنْ الْأَصْنَامِ, and Allah has forbidden for you the worshipping of idols. So that's what she says. And that's subhanAllah. And don't forget, the Arabs were able to do this very quickly. So this is a woman on her deathbed, obviously very sick. She's able to come out with these beautiful lines of poetry. This is something that's very, very natural. And then she said, كُلُّ حَيٍّ مَيِّتٍ, everything that's alive is dead. The reality is that we're all going to die. وَكُلُّ جَدِيدٍ بَالٍ, and everything that's new will eventually become worn out. وَكُلُّ كَبِيرٍ يَفْنَى, and every big thing will one day fall into ruin, will decompose. وَأَنَّ مَيْتَةُ, and I am someone who's dying. She says, وَذِكْرِ بَاقٍ, and my remembrance, people will remember me, she says. Not because of who she is, because of the Prophet and her relationship. She's the mother of the Prophet. وَقَدْ تَرَكْتُ خَيْرٌ, and I have left a good, a righteous son, a pure son. And then, with this, she passed away. And the ulama say that up until this point, the Prophet had not cried as much as he cried that day. There was a day in which up until that point, he never cried as much. it was said that the jinn themselves, in one narration, the jinn themselves became upset, and some lines of poetry and the wailing and the noise of sadness could be heard from the jinn themselves. To this point, now we find that the Prophet now has lost his father and his mother, which only leaves Abdul Muttalib, who is his what? His grandfather. So now his grandfather now is going to look after him, and his grandfather, don't forget, his grandfather was lost in his favourite son. Abdullah was his favourite son, yes? Yeah. Don't forget, when they were the camels, he was his favourite son. So now he lost his favourite son, and obviously his daughter-in-law, which now leaves the young prophet now without any parents at all. So Abdul Muttalib now, the grandfather, then takes the young prophet in, and they had a closeness there. There's a closeness. Generally, when a person loves a son or daughter, then any children from that son or daughter will also be loved. It comes the emotions become transferred. And so he then, Abdul Muttalib now takes the young prophet in his custody, and he becomes his the closest thing he has to a father. The closest thing he has to a father. Now Abdul Muttalib, what he used to do, he used to sit by the Kaaba. Don't forget, he used to sleep. He used to sleep at the Kaaba. Remember, that's how we had the dream. Yeah, and he would sit in the shade part of the Kaaba during the daytime. He'd have this cloth or this mat where he would sit, and all his sons would not sit on the mat. His sons would all sit around the mat, but not around it, but not on it. And he would sit there. Why? Out of respect, they had a lot of respect. So he'd be sitting on this mat by the Kaaba in the shade, and they'd be sitting a distance around. And the young Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now just over 6 years of age, he would, obviously being young, and obviously not his grandfather, he would just walk right in, and he would actually walk onto the mat, and obviously Abdul Muttalib's own sons, and because of the respect they had for Abdul Muttalib, they themselves wouldn't sit on a mat. So for them it was rude, like, oh, this little boy walking in. So they pull him back. And this happened several narrations here happen. In one narration that when he walked in, the young prophet to walk in, they pulled him back. And when Abdul Muttalib saw this, he said, leave him. Da'u. And he said, leave my son. Is he a son? No. But why did he refer to him as a son?
Because he's the son of Abdullah.
Well, he's not his son, no?
The culture.
The culture. That's very important. That will become very useful.
What's
If
the
you have the lights on, put the lights on, inshallah. And he would say that, he would also in one narration say, leave my son to sit, for verily he feels in himself an importance. That's why he's sitting on this mat, by me, by the Kaaba, because he feels himself, there's something, he's not a normal child, there's something important within him. And I hope that his importance and his honour will reach that which nobody else has ever reached before. Okay. And Abdul Muttalib would also tell Ayman, because Ayman now, she was the closest thing he had to a mother, yeah, and Abdul Muttalib would told her and warned her, be careful from the people of Ahl Kitab, because they know that he's a prophet and there's been several death threats on his life. So he's warning her, be careful, this child has a great affair, so make sure you look after him. And one day Abdul Muttalib was sitting on his mat, and the Prophet walked in as usual, and he was then a very young child, and he sat on the mat, and then one of the uncles pulled him back, and this time when he pulled him back, the young Prophet cried loud. He was crying, he cried out loud, and then Abdul Muttalib heard the crying, because he didn't see what was going on. And he said, "What's wrong with my son? Ma li ibni. What's wrong with my son? Yibki. Why is my son crying?" And he said, "Oh, he wanted to sit on a mat next to you, and it's rude. It's children running around, and he said it's rude. And he said, leave him alone. Let him sit next to me. Okay, subhanAllah, let him sit next to me." And Abdul Muttalib, when the food was brought to him, Abdul Muttalib, because there was food we brought, he would always give him the nicest part of the food, and whatever else was left, he would give to his own sons. So he's giving his grandson the priority, the best type of food, because obviously, when any food was given, Abdul Muttalib would get the best part. The best part. That's the way manners when you study with the ulama. You always give them the best. If you have meat, or something, you give them the best part. That's the way it etiquettes. Yeah? And the idea behind that is that through the satisfaction of the teacher, the students gain satisfaction. If the teacher is satisfied, if the teacher is happy, then for the students, that's all they want. But that's the proper students. As for the students who just, they want to eat and go home, for example, the satisfaction of the Shaykh doesn't mean anything. They want to be, as long as they're satisfied, it doesn't matter if the Shaykh is satisfied or not, if he ate or not, doesn't matter, as long as I eat. Nafsi, nafsi. And it was said that even Abdul Muttalib then would even sit the young Prophet on his lap. And one said that sometimes the food would come. Sometimes the food would come and be served. And because the young Prophet wasn't there, he would stop. He'd say, "Go and fetch him first. Nobody eats until he comes." So you have to go and find him. And he brought him. And he would sit on the mat, and he sit on the lap of Abdul Muttalib, and Abdul Muttalib then would give him the best part of the food, and then they start. So he's favouring us, subhanAllah. And he says that there's so much respect that his Abdul Muttalib's sons had for him, is that whenever he'd walk out to sit on the mat, they would get up for him. His own sons, subhanAllah. One day there was a man, a Christian scholar, and this Christian scholar from the lands of Najran, he was talking, and he said that we have the description of the Prophet, the one who will come from the ancestral line of Ismail, and this is his country. هذا البلد مولده. This is the place of his birth, and his characteristics is like this and like this. So he's talking to Abdul Muttalib. SubhanAllah. And then the young Prophet then walks out. The Prophet, as a young child, walks out. And he then, and this man then, upon seeing the Prophet, he becomes surprised. And he looks at him, and looks at his eyes, the redness in his eyes, and he looks at his back, the mark. And then he's so happy, he says, "This is the one, this is the one." SubhanAllah. How he's just talking to Abdul Muttalib about him, and he walks in. He walks in. And then he then looks at him quite carefully. And he says, Abdul Muttalib then says, "Oh, this is my son." This is my son, هذا ابني. And this scholar said, no. This child has no father. This child has no father that is alive. And then he said, Abdul Muttalib then said, yes. He is my grandson. And his father, my son, has passed away. And his mother has passed away too. And he said that his father passed away when his mother was pregnant with him. To which then he said, yes, yes, that's right. SubhanAllah, they knew, SubhanAllah. And then Abdul Muttalib then turned and said to the young Prophet, and in one narration he actually says to his sons who were listening to him, to his sons, who will grow up later, listen to what this man has said. Do you not hear? Do you not listen? Do you not hear what he just said about this young child? So going on this tradition, the Prophet's uncles, Abdul Muttalib's own sons, according to this tradition, have already got a sense of the importance of this young child. Now, unfortunately, in the 7th year after the Hijrah, the young Prophet ﷺ had an eye sickness, a sickness of his eyes.
7 years after the...
No, when he was 7.
Okay.
When he was 7 years of age, he fell sick, something wrong with his eyes. In the Arabic it's called ramad. In English I don't know what it's called. And there was it was quite painful for him. And Abdul Muttalib then, as was the custom, was if he had this sickness, there's a man who was a monk, some religious background, who'd go to him and he had the right medical experience to help. He was known for healing people of this type of sickness. So they went, Abdul Muttalib and the young Prophet went, and he got to his place where he worships, and then they knocked on the door, and no answer, and there was still no answer, and then because of that no answer, as they were leaving, the house began to shake. The house began to shake. And the man, this person who lived there, he then comes out and he shouts to them, come back. And they come back and the house then stops shaking. And he says that if I didn't come out, had I stayed in the house and I didn't come out, the house would have collapsed on top of me. And he said that this child that you have is the child of this ummah. And if I didn't come out, this child is a prophet. If I didn't come out, the house would collapse on top of me. And he then gave him some cure, and the Prophet's eyes were cured. And he told him, be careful of this child. The people of Ahl Kitab this will want to kill him because of what he's about to bring to the world and what it means for them. And subhanAllah, the young Prophet then left. At the age of, in one narration 8, in one narration 9, in one narration 10, Abdul Muttalib now passes away himself. And the Prophet, in one narration at the age of 8 years of age, the young Prophet now at the deathbed of his grandfather then witnesses the death of his grandfather, and he attended the funeral. And many years later the Prophet was asked, do you remember the death of your uncle? And he says, yes, I remember that I was 8 years of age.
Grandfather.
What did I say?
Uncle.
Uncle, subhanAllah. Uncle. Because his uncle's Abu Talib.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I get that mixed up. Very, very important. If I get mixed up with the names, catch me, inshallah. Catch me. Okay, so that's what he said. That's what he said, subhanAllah. So when he was asked, do you remember anything? The only thing that he could remember in one narration was the fact that he was of 8 years of age at the death of his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. And just before Abdul Muttalib passed away, he called for his son, Abu Talib, and he told him to look after this young child, the young prophet. He told him that you have the responsibility now of looking after him. And he then took on the responsibility of looking after the young prophet. And the reason why he picked Abu Talib is that Abu Talib and Abdullah, they had the same mother. So they were full brothers. So this is his full uncle. Abu Talib was his full uncle. Abu Talib and Abdullah, they had the same mother. To Abdul Muttalib. Okay, and that's why he gave him priority. Okay, and when he passed away, then Abu Talib then took him in, and mashallah, he treated him really good, like his own son, And wherever Abu Talib would go, he'd always take the young prophet with him, and he loved him, mashallah, intensely. He had a deep love for him, and he says that he would not sleep except that the young prophet would be next to him. He wouldn't sleep like us, and the young prophet had to be next to him. And he was he said that he would pour love to him, and he would give him food even before his own sons. Abu Talib, before giving food to his own sons, he would give him the food first. And it says here, he would say to them, when food was provided for his own children and the young prophet wasn't there, he would not allow them to eat until they went and brought the young prophet to come and eat. And then when the young prophet would come, then the prophet would eat. And what they found was amazing, is that when the prophet came, there was always food left over, and they were always full. But when the prophet didn't eat with them, when they couldn't find him, for example, the food would always finish, and they would always be hungry. That's what they found. And that's what Abu Talib realized, and he wanted to make sure the prophet is with us, make sure this young child eats with us. And every time he ate, there was food left over, and everyone was full. And the same amount of food, but when he was there, and particularly if he ate first, that's what he realized. And when they were given something to drink, some milk, one container, if the prophet drank from it first, then that container or that cup was passed around, everybody would have their share. Everybody would drink and feel full if the prophet drank first. And what was strange about this is that this one jug, or this one utensil, one of them by themselves could drink it by himself. But because the prophet drank from it first and passed it around, there was enough for everybody. And if the prophet wasn't there, one of them would drink it all by himself. Just one. But because the prophet drank from it first, there's a barakah. And you'll see that as we go on, several occasions where barakah comes from the prophet in terms of water, in terms of food. Many examples in some of the battles, in the battle of the trench. Many examples with the Sahaba, like, there's not enough food for everybody. And one of the Sahaba invited the prophet to eat, and the prophet invited everybody, the whole army, to come. MashaAllah. So imagine, it's like, for example, Amir, he invites 1 or 2 Malaysians, for example. Next thing you know, 400 Malaysian, MashaAllah, from all universities, even from Newport, they come to his house for food, and he's only cooked for maybe 5 or 6, for example. You have maybe 400, 500. Things like that would happen, and the prophet would say a dua. We do something to the food, dua, so, and then the food will be plenty, and there'll still be enough left. Many examples. As we go on, inshallah, we'll come to these examples. And Ayman would actually say, Ayman would say that not once did she ever see the young prophet thirsty or hungry or complaining about being hungry. Young children, they complain, I'm too hungry, I'm thirsty. So she never noticed, this young child ever complaining about being hungry or being thirsty. And if he when he drank the water of Zamzam, then that's the only time he would say, I'm full. أنا شبعان, I am full. And the reason why he would say he was full is because when it came to lunchtime, the food to be given to him, he was like, I can't eat any. He said, why? You haven't eaten anything. He said, I drank Zamzam. That's enough. I can't eat anymore. And some of the Sahaba, all they drank was Zamzam, and they got fat. MashaAllah, they got weight. Zamzam. Barakah. And once the young Prophet he saw that Abu Talib's children, when they were eating, MashaAllah, every man for himself, everyone getting the food, and he saw that he didn't like it, and he moved back. He didn't see this, not manners. Everyone's just running around, everyone's eating and so forth. There's no manners in eating. And Abu Talib, when he saw him, he asked, and he realized, he doesn't like it because everyone's rude, eating, where's the old one first and so forth. And then Abu Talib then actually requested that the Prophet food to be separate. Give him his own food separate. Because they have no manners. And the Prophet, eat by himself. Because he won't eat. That's a young child. That's a young child now refusing to eat. Why? No manners. That's a hadith. Khair. Let me see. Khair, inshallah. We'll end the. Does anybody have any? I'll take 2 questions before I leave, inshallah. 2 questions. Anybody has any questions? If there's no questions.
On the early lesson of your class, you mentioned that the Prophet learned to swim in the well. So we all noticed that there are...
What's this? Oh, mashallah. Khair, I'm not going to fit in the cup.
It's going to fit.
It's a bit big, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, mashallah. Jazakumullah khair. It's a sunnah in Jum'ah to hold. It's a sunnah. Either to have a stick or a sword. You can't have a sword. It says to have a stick or a sword.
You can buy sword easily.
Huh?
When the Surah, there's a gap here. I asked before it was posted, the gap wasn't here. I think maybe the custom they open it, check inside. But there's a screw that maybe you can loosen it and tighten it again.
Khair. Inshallah. Khair. We'll have to get used to moving the papers. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Huh?
This is all from us.
Oh, Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah.
Postgrad as well.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah.
You can give the lecture next week using the stick.
That's what Jum'ah.
Picture.
Ah, I can see you, you're right.
Yeah, there's a screw there, so I think.
Ajib. And this is the one that you use in Malaysia, like this?
Yeah.
For Jum'ah?
Yeah.
Ajib.
Most of them.
Oh, mashallah. Khair. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, I'll put it.
Wrap it.
Yeah, inshallah.
Picture.
The Jum'ah probably will be better.
I think a bit Latin. 1, 2, 3. Another picture. And Amir. 1, 2, 3. Amir.
Jazakumullah khair, thank you very much. Inshallah, the sunnah of the Jum'ah, inshallah. You get the reward, inshallah. Also, anybody causing trouble with you.
People we have many.
And some, the contribution also come from some of the brothers from Malaysia.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, be something should be useful, inshallah. It's in the, it mentions in the rights of traveller to hold, to have a stick or a sword. And the Prophet, that's the Prophet would hold something. In his right hand, the right hand,
I got questions.
right hand.
Right hand is so.
Right hand, yeah. And this one would hold oh, hang on, his question first.
Okay. I just want to know, because there's like 3 sports. There is a sunnah to the Prophet, which is swimming, riding a horse, and archery. So like, in your opinion, what is the significance of in this modern life if we practice all those 3 sports?
The first one, it's the sunnah of the Prophet. Every sunnah of the Prophet.
There must be an advantage. Right? There's definitely be an advantage on
There's a spiritual side. Also, it's the previous prophets. They were things the previous prophets had. Also, they're essential skills. The modern man have nearly forgotten. At one point or another, you will be traveling overseas. At one point in your lives. So knowing how to swim is very important to save yourself or to save others. That's the next thing. And then riding, who's to say that petrol and this type of thing? We know that the world's resources in terms of petrol and diesel and oil, it's going to run out eventually. So these are things which, if you don't know how to ride a horse, or ride a donkey or a camel, it's it can be difficult for us. And archery is survival skills.
Do you know how to archery?
No, but we've got one of the boys I teach has a bow and arrow. He bought a bow and arrow, and now and again he practices. He practices. But there's people who there's archery courses that people Muslims do. Maybe you guys should look into that, by the way. Archery course for men and for women. If you look onto it, inshallah, you can hire somebody who will come and teach. One of the universities here, by Roth Park, there's a school by Roth Park, and they used to do it every Sunday. And they'll teach you for several weeks, and they give you a certificate. Inshallah. But archery is a good thing. When you're in the forest, when you're hungry, what are you going to do? Eat. You go to the Asda or the supermarket.
Leave.
We are not good at archery, but we are good at playing dart.
MashaAllah. That's a start. I'm going to have to go because Maghrib is coming now, inshallah. So, subhanahu wa ta'ala.